Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Carlos Vasquez, and I'm the CEO at FASI. At FASI, our focus is to understand, translate, and intervene with food allergies. And we have established a unique collaborative network of leading scientists focused on bringing us one step closer to a cure. In a short period of time, FASI has changed the landscape of food allergy research, and we're very excited for the road ahead. This year, we've put together an exciting lineup of speakers for our seminar series, Our Journey to a Cure. Slide, great. This year, we put together an exciting lineup of speakers, and through the year, we will take you along for a journey through FASI's endeavor to create a world without food allergies. Join us for a monthly seminar series where we will spotlight critical science on the path to developing transformative therapies. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Dr. Eric Edwards to discuss food allergy therapy and the unmet need. Dr. Edwards, it's an MD PhD, and it's currently the co-founder and chief executive officer at Flow Corporations. And prior to that, he was a co-founder at Kaleo and the co-inventor of multiple marketed products, including the epinephrine autoinjector for the treatment of anaphylaxis, AviQ. We're also very lucky to have Eric as part of our FASI board. And more importantly, Eric is a patient and a father of a food allergic child. So Eric, thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you. And when thinking about developing therapies, we can always think about great ideas, but I'm also a big fan of thinking backwards and understanding. And one of the main considerations in the development of therapies is to clearly understand what is the specific unmet need. So I'm thrilled to kick off this series of exciting seminars to discussing with someone who has a very unique experience, not only developing the therapies for allergic patients, but also someone that exactly knows what it is to live with food allergies at home. Before we start, Eric, I just want to remind our audience that we will take questions and answers from the box at the end of the discussion. So, Eric, thank you again for being here. What can you tell us, or can you tell us a little bit more about your journey in the creation of AviQ?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's fantastic to be with you, Carlos, and I'm really excited about this discussion today. Also, just wanted to congratulate you as well as the new CEO of FASI. We are thrilled to have you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and also just to see that leadership development. FASI is in excellent hands with you at the helm, and so looking forward to continuing to work alongside you on the board as well. So I got into the food allergy arena very, very early when my identical twin brother and I were born. Shortly thereafter, so it wasn't, maybe we were 14 months old, we were diagnosed as some of the most allergic children our physician had ever encountered at that time. So there wasn't a lot of awareness around food allergies back then. So we're talking late 70s, early 80s. There just wasn't a lot out there, but we struggled. We were allergic. We had a ton of environmental allergens, but we had massive food allergies. We were allergic to tomatoes and eggs and peanuts and tree nuts and all seafood, fish and shellfish. And it was a big deal. What made our allergies unique is most of our reactions were IgE mediated anaphylactic reactions. So these weren't just intolerances. So we had to grow up, carrying this potentially life-saving dose of epinephrine with us at all times in the form of the EpiPen. That was the only thing that was available back then. And we struggled through our teenage years and beyond just to have it with us when we needed it. There were a couple of close calls that we had. So my identical twin brother and I, we went into our college education. I wanted to be a physician, and I'd gotten involved with the rescue squad. I'm right-brained, he's left-brained. We're a mirror image, identical twins. So I joke and say I'm right-brained, which means that I care about people. He's left brain, which means he's engineering and he doesn't care about people. But we both wanted to change and impact the way folks were living with life-threatening food allergies. And in all seriousness, it was a perfect combination where he went into engineering and then I went into medicine. And in college, we started working on this idea of an alternative to a pen-like auto-injector. That led us to create and found Kaleo. We had no clue what we were getting ourselves into. If someone would have told us, we probably would have never have even started the company because it was super complex, more than you would imagine. Most people don't know this, but at the time, the EpiPen had never been through a single human clinical trial to get approval. It was just grandfathered in. And so we had to redo all of the clinical studies and build this from scratch to try to come up with what we were trying to solve for, which was a more portable product that had a retractable needle to prevent injury, that would reduce pain, and that would ultimately empower caregivers through an audible and visual, hence AviQ, audible and visual cues, to help someone get through an allergic emergency. Because sometimes the individual who has to give the epinephrine isn't necessarily the patient self-administering it. So that led to all of the normal things you deal with in a startup journey, right? Raising money. First, you have to convince your parents to believe in you, because if your parents don't even like the idea and don't invest in you, then you're going to struggle. So friends and family, and then angel investors, and then venture capital, and then we had a partner. If people are familiar with the AviQ saga, we had a partner in Sanofi, and then we got the product back after they recalled the product, and then we relaunched the product and took over manufacturing. And then really started to, create progress. And then we were blocked by certain insurers from the manufacturer of the EpiPen to try to block us commercially. So we've seen it all. It's not just about building a product. It's also making sure you can get it into the hands of patients. But that's kind of the journey that I've been on. We built the company from scratch, built the product, did all the clinical studies, got FDA approval, launched the product. And then my family and some of the other investors left the company, sold the company to a new owner, and then I consulted and then started another company focused on critical essential medicines. And now I stay connected to the food allergy community through my work consulting, or through my board work with Fosse as an example.
That is great. That is great, Eric, and thanks for sharing that. It's a very unique experience in a short period of time. So you've seen it all in epinephrine products. What do you think about the epinephrine products landscape? Other products that have been developed and products that are under development?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that unfortunately there hasn't been a ton of innovation. There hasn't been a huge number of products that have been coming out there that have been radically different. There have been some epinephrine auto-injectors. Folks might remember Twinject, and then Adrenaclick, and then the generic for Adrenaclick. But they've and Simjepi, which was basically a pre-filled syringe that was wrapped in a device to try to make it easier. But it's all been injectable epinephrine, and there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the area until the intranasal products that have been in the pipeline. We've watched this for years and years and years. Over a decade, I've been watching this space, and there just hasn't been a significant amount of innovation to get approved to date. It's just been focused on tried and true injectable epinephrine, IM, intramuscular, subcutaneous.
Actually, to that point, there was a recent decision by the FDA to reject the neffy approval, and you've probably seen this up close and personal. So, was wondering your thoughts about that decision by the FDA.
Yeah, I know I have some slides here. Let me see if I can get that going here. Can y'all see this?
Yes.
So that slide came up in full view.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So the FDA rejected neffy. This was fascinating, you all, to watch, just as someone who has been intimately involved with an FDA approval for an epinephrine product. I was watching this play out with a lot of intrigue. And this is a very different type of rejection. It is very atypical. Let me explain. So first and foremost, the fact that you would have a drug that gets approved by the advisory committee, meaning there was a positive opinion by an advisory committee that came together from the FDA. Usually the FDA would follow the advisory committee's recommendations and approve it. The fact that that was rejected is very unique. In addition, the fact that the drug got rejected so late in the development pathway, so they were in labeling negotiations with the FDA. I know for a fact when you bring the division director into labeling negotiations and you're going back and forth on labeling, it is very rare that you're not heading towards approval. So the company was surprised, the food allergy community was surprised, I was surprised. I for sure thought that this was going to get approved, especially after the advisory committee thoughtful discussion on the clinical evidence, safety and efficacy presented to date on the studies that they did conduct.
Well, there's been a lot of theories and discussions about that decision. Do you think, and some of them have been around exposure and pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, do you think that decision has anything to do with PD and PK results compared to EpiPen?
Yeah, so I think I have, let me find the slide. I think I have a PK. I do. All right, so for those who are non-clinical in the room, what you have to be able to show for an epinephrine product is first and foremost, you have to show comparative bioavailability. And what does that mean? That means when you administer your epinephrine product, you need to compare it to a reference listed drug, or in this case, the standard of care at the time, or anything that has been approved. You can compare that to Auvi-Q because that's approved. You can compare it to EpiPen. They chose EpiPen, and they were trying to demonstrate that the pharmacokinetics, meaning how the drug gets absorbed, first in the nasal cavity, then into the systemic circulation, because what are we trying to do with epinephrine? We're trying to vasoconstrict, and we're trying to stimulate the cardiovascular system, because you could be in a shock state, right? Shunt all that blood to the heart and your vital organs. We're also trying to bronchodilate, meaning open up your airways so that you can breathe better if you have bronchoconstriction from anaphylaxis. And epinephrine does all of that. It works on alpha and beta receptors. So you need to get it in your bloodstream, and it needs to work systemically throughout the body. And so you're trying to show that this nasal delivery system has comparable pharmacokinetics to an auto-injectable epinephrine. And what they showed here was they showed comparable bioavailability. Now, there were some differences. So, for example, you can see that blue spike on the left-hand side, EpiPen had early peak or higher plasma concentrations earlier. That's called Tmax as compared to Neffy. But then under repeat dosing, there was a difference with favoring Neffy. What really mattered is that when you're looking at the variability of epinephrine, because it's an endogenous hormone, we have epinephrine circulating in our bodies. Was it comparable enough, or did they have a pharmacokinetic profile that was sufficient? And the advisory committee looked at the data, and experts weighed in, and I can look at this and say, yes, it's comparable. The challenge was they did a allergic rhinitis study with a single dose, and FDA determined at the last minute that they wanted to see data from repeat dosing in an allergic rhinitis model. So think about it, the perspective from anaphylaxis. What if, like me, I have a sinus infection today? What if I have an anaphylactic reaction and I were to use Neffy, but I needed an additional dose? What would happen there? What's the safety data? What's the efficacy data? They did not have it. They said that they would do additional studies post-market, and they gained that commitment, so they thought, but the FDA said, nope, we need to have more data. And then they ended ultimately they did not approve it. Massive impact, in my opinion, on the food allergy committee. And I think a lot of us were disappointed in the result.
This is interesting. When I talk and before joining FOSSI, I went and talked to all my friends in big companies and the pharmaceutical company, and I asked about food allergies, and some of the reaction was like, well, epinephrine products are out there already, so that's done, that's solved. So you've experienced this very well. Why do you think treatments beyond epinephrine products are important, or are they important? And if so, why?
Well, first and foremost, I'll just start with epinephrine. We need more options with epinephrine. I would be the first to tell anyone, a PBM, a pharmacy benefit management organization, an insurer, or a physician, especially non-allergists, that we need to go beyond just injectable epinephrine. We can do better. So, for example, this intranasal option was going to be huge for the food allergy community, because there are still a proportion of patients today that have fear of needles, or they're anxious about even auto-injectable epinephrine. And any epinephrine, getting it into your system is better than no epinephrine. So this provided another portable option that was without a needle, and they were able to show that they could get systemic circulating levels of epinephrine in rather quickly, and that the food allergy community needs those options. So that's number one. So I do think we need additional options outside of just an auto-injectable epinephrine, and this is coming from the co-inventor of an auto-injector, right? So as it relates to other treatments, though, and getting in, I think I have a slide here around why we even need to be going after food allergies, Carlos. Think about it from this perspective. You have this huge prevalence of food allergies, yet we've only had one true drug approved for the food allergic population outside of epinephrine. This is Palforzia, is the example. That is amazing when you look at these other disease states. So you have a disease area with a higher prevalence, yet a pipeline that is extremely limited. There's just a dearth of options out there. Going a little deeper, all we have today outside of epinephrine, which we just talked about, the auto injectors that are available in prefilled syringe, we have attempts to prevent reactions via immunotherapy. And the challenge with immunotherapy, as many people who have been in this space or who might be on this seminar understand, or my own family understands, is that with oral immunotherapy, for example, you still have common adverse reactions. You have complex treatment protocols. You have regimens that are not easy to incorporate in your normal activities of daily living. Even with Palforzia, which is the peanut flour protein product, when you give it to children who are highly allergic to peanuts, it requires close supervision. It requires patients to have to start off with this 6-month dose escalation period. You have this maintenance therapy period where it's pretty much indefinite. So patients have to continue to take 300 milligrams of peanut protein daily, and not all patients responded. So that's a challenge. When you look at what's available today, Carlos, one of the biggest issues is we haven't done a good job of being able to adopt these treatments and incorporate it into a manner where it really improves the quality of life and reduces anxiety. Or what about an individual like my daughter is allergic to peanuts, to tree nuts, to shellfish? Okay, so you deal with peanut, but what about the other allergens? And we just haven't taken a comprehensive approach to date. And so there's so much more that we can do to make sure that not just we have additional options, but the options that we are able to obtain fit in the normal course of a patient and a parent's activities of daily living or quality of life.
Yeah, no, it's sad to see so very few options, and in a world where we see so many options for other treatments. So in development, this field very well. Are there other options in development, and what should people be paying attention to?
Yeah, sure. So, we've got some things on the horizon. It's not, again, going back to the earlier conversation, it's not full where you would expect to see a robust pipeline, but there is activity and there are some promising things. First and foremost, going back to the novel delivery of epinephrine, it's not a question of if anymore. It's a question of when intranasal gets approved and who gets there first. ARS is ahead, obviously, and they're gonna come back from this challenge, this punch in the face, I would say, and they're gonna be better for it, and they'll get this approved, and it'll probably be next year after they conduct the study. So at least that's what the food allergy community is hoping for. And then there's some other options in epinephrine. When you look at immunotherapy, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's a couple of things that are interesting. For example, when you look at PVX-108, that's a modified intradermal peptide. It contains genes actually for a peanut allergen, and the goal is just to try to shift the immune system away from having an IgE-mediated reaction. So that's kind of unique. There's some biologics that have been approved already for other indications. So amilazumab, which Xolair has been approved for, obviously, severe asthma, dupilumab as well, but now they're looking at that for peanut allergy, for example, or other severe allergic severe IgE-mediated food allergies. And then there's other early stage candidates as well that are unique. For example, this concept of a covalent heterobivalent inhibitor, or CHBI. This is an epitope blocker. What it does is it has these binding domains that irreversibly attach to an appropriate antibody to try to block a reaction. And that's really interesting because it can block any systemic reaction, not just focused on peanut, but that's where they're starting. So there's some promise out there, Carlos, but this is why FOSSI exists. This list, I should have like 5 pages of a pipeline. And that's what you would normally see in other therapy areas of interest, like other autoimmune diseases, like rheumatoid arthritis, for example, or other diseases that have such high prevalence among the United States population.
So I have about 100 different questions, and I am lucky to have you as a board member because I get to ask you offline about those questions. So maybe in the interest of time and for our audience, I will ask you a final question. Lucky to have you as a board member. Can I ask you why? What prompted you to join FOSSI as a board member?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to even though that I'm not actively working in the food allergy space today, from my pharmaceutical company that I'm currently working on, Flow Corporation, it's working to reshore the critical essential medicine supply chain and bring them back from India and China to the United States to try to solve for drug shortages. I've always and will always be interested in trying to find a cure for my child who has life-threatening food allergies, but also just I'm deeply interested after going through the process of trying to get a drug approved in this space and trying to help others. And so I got really excited when I saw FOSSI's extraordinary, exceptional, landmark network of scientists collaborating and coming together. And I think that this group, out of every single advocacy organization I've ever seen or been a part of, this group, more than anyone else, has the leadership, has the focus, has the strategy to really race towards finding new therapeutic approaches that can ultimately be translated into new therapeutics. And that's what excites me about being a part of this organization.
Thank you for that, Eric. We really appreciate it, and we're really honored to have you. It's been great. I want to save some time so that we can take some questions. And before we get into questions, I just want to remind everyone, of our Journey to a Cure seminar series. We're excited to have this journey over the next year. And on December 12th, I will encourage our audience to join us for the next discussion with Dr. Isaac Chu, who'll be talking about scratching an itch and how that neuroimmune interaction between the skin, the reactions between the skin that triggers aberrant responses upon the first food allergen exposure. And that will be December 12th. So hopefully everyone will join. And we often get asked by many, how can they get involved? How can they donate? You can donate, you can host events, follow us in social media, and join our seminar series. And you can use this code so that you can go easily and donate and get involved. So very, very excited to have you here. So I'll open the door. I'll open the channels for a few questions. We have a few minutes here, and let me see. Maybe I think I can see one question. So why do you think many pharmaceutical companies are not prioritizing the development of therapies for food allergies?
Yeah, that's a good question. Whoever submitted, I will say that there's a few reasons that I would hypothesize, and some that I think are stronger than others. But for sure, one of the biggest challenges is you've got to be able to show that in this arena you can have a return on investment, and so they need to see some success stories coming out of investors willing to take a shot on a new therapeutic approach, and that being commercially viable and successful. And unfortunately, there was limited success with Palforzia, for example, on the commercial side. There's been some challenges, and So sometimes that leads to investors being reticent to continue to jump right back in if they're like, okay, we tried this, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $1 billion valuation at one point, and then it failed to realize what the commercial forecasts were. And so that was a challenge that Nestle had when they took over the product and commercialized it. Investors want to see that if I go into this space, there's going to be adoption. I think that leads to another reason, which is lack of awareness or understanding of what the food allergy community needs. One of the challenges we have is sometimes we just put out there, you've got tens of millions of people who have food allergy. Well, you have to be very specific, right? So is it a true food allergy or is it intolerance? Is it just peanut, and how many peanut allergic are there? And then what does that potential population look like? And how many just have peanut versus multiple other allergens as well? So when you're building a therapy, if you were just going to build a therapy for just people who have peanut allergy and no other allergens, what's the addressable population and how much penetration can you have? What does that look like? Is that 1 million, 2 million, 5 million? And you got to be able to show that pathway for investors and for the community. And we can do a better job of that, I think, advocating for this market as being an exciting market that can do good and do well, including provide a return on investment. Finally, I would just say there's just been a lack of research, and that's where FOSSI comes in. So when you don't have a huge pipeline of opportunities, or, for example, there was a peanut vaccine that was recently killed. When you have a lot of failures in the pipeline, it's hard for people to get excited around it. There might be a lot of hype around something like Alzheimer's disease, but when you don't have a lot of that hype translating into therapies, it's hard for people to continue to put investment in it. So we need to have some success stories, and we need to get some low-hanging fruit out there. And that's what I'm really encouraged about with FOSSI, tackling it from different levels, filling up that pipeline so that we can get one or two of these things to be successful, and then success will follow success, Carlos.
That is great. No, that is great. Eric, probably just take one last question. What should future therapy for food allergy offer in order for people to adopt it?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I mean, personally, from my perspective, you got to meet the patient and the parent of a food allergic child where they are. And what I mean by that is a lot of people might develop an incremental improvement over what currently exists. So if you are telling a parent that we're going to reduce your anxiety and improve your food allergy related quality of life by having you go into a physician's, an allergist office, and you're going to have to go 3 days a week or 1 day every week for the next 6 months. And then in addition to that, you need to also make sure your child eats this many peanuts every single day or gets exposed every day for the rest of their life, or you may not be tolerant anymore. That's hard because you're making it really tough. And then what about that child like mine that it's not just peanuts, it's egg, it's tree nuts as well. So being able to meet a patient where they are, have a food allergy therapy that can prevent a reaction for multiple allergens, and then have a dosing regimen that fits within a normal activity of daily living, maybe 1 shot every 6 months or taking a pill, that you really could manage without changing physician behavior or changing your normal daily behavior, is something that I think will improve adoption dramatically.
Perfect. Eric, thank you. We have many questions. Jenny, Cox, Stacy, there are many questions here. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we will follow up via email, or we're happy to jump on a call with everyone and have a discussion. Eric, I want to thank you again for everything you do, for spending your time with us today, and with a unique perspective, providing us so much insight. So thank you again, and thanks for everyone for joining today.
Thank you all.